An explanation of beauty, Bi no Setsume, by Nishida Kitaro. What is beauty? If we inquire into it from the emotional aspect, the sense of beauty is nothing other than a kind of pleasure. Mainly since Burke, British psychologists have emphasized that beauty is something that gives a sense of pleasure, and that the sense of beauty is identical with selfish pleasure. Although this explanation is also true to a certain extent, as a definition of beauty, it is still not adequate. The sense of beauty is pleasure, but the reverse is not always true. Everyone would agree that no matter how much pleasure things such as fame, wealth, food, and drink give us, we do not at all consider them aesthetic pleasures. Recently, a man named Marshall has written a book titled Pain, Pleasure, and Aesthetics, which explains in detail the sense of beauty as a kind of pleasure. According to Marshall's argument, aesthetic pleasure is not limited only to the moment when it is felt, but is enjoyed in the same way when recalled later on. In a word, it is stable pleasure. Although I can agree that Marshall's explanation accords with the facts to a considerable extent, fundamentally it is no different from the previous explanations. I still cannot accept as a complete explanation the theory that the special characteristic of beauty is found simply in stable pleasure, or that this theory can fully explain the nature of beauty. Then what are the characteristics of the type of pleasure that makes up the sense of beauty? What is the special characteristic of the sense of beauty? According to the explanation of German idealism since Kant, the sense of beauty is pleasure detached from the ego. It is a pleasure of the moment when one forgets one's own interest, such as advantage and disadvantage, gain and loss. Only this muga is the essential element of beauty. When this is lacking, no matter what kind of pleasure you feel, it cannot give rise to the sense of beauty. Long ago, someone expressed the desire to see the moon of exile, although guilty of no crime. And this remark illustrates the matter very well. Even if a man is an artist of outstanding genius, no one who is mean of heart has ever become a great master. In contrast, however, when we are not in the least restricted by thought of self, not only does pleasure give rise to a sense of beauty, but everything that was originally unpleasant undergoes a complete change and provides aesthetic pleasure. That we deeply feel more and more aesthetic pleasure when we read a sad poem, experiencing more and more hatred or sorrow at what is hateful or sad, is mainly due to the above reason. A great man who is not only aloof from external matters, but is also completely divorced from any thought of self-interest, reaches the point where everything in life gives a sense of beauty. The place where a man of great virtue goes is always enjoyed. Therefore, if you want to obtain an authentic sense of beauty, you must confront things in the state of pure muga. The sense of beauty arises through the essential condition known as divine inspiration of art. If the sense of beauty is as I have described above, what kind of thing produces it? In other words, what kind of thing do we call beauty? Everyone agrees that beauty is truth, that it is something that comes into existence in an ideal reality. However, as has been proposed by Baumgarten of the Leibnizian school, the truth and ideals that form the foundation of beauty should not be viewed as identical with logical truth and ideals. If you say that they are identical, then an anatomy chart would occupy the highest level of art, and this is quite ridiculous. The truth underlying beauty is not obtained by the faculty of thought, it is intuitive truth. As I noted above about the world of muga, it is a kind of truth that comes as a sudden stimulus from the depth of the heart. The reason why we somehow feel a kind of truth and we sympathize more and more strongly when we read Hamlet's soliloquy is not because Hamlet's words accord with psychological theories. It is because something touches our heartstrings. This kind of truth cannot be expressed in words. Indeed, this is the so-called open secret, offenes Geheimnis of Goethe. Occasionally, people vainly esteem logical truth and reject intuitive truth as being the mere fancy of poets. However, in my opinion, this intuitive truth is attained when we have separated from the self and become one with things. In other words, it is a truth seen with the eyes of God. Since this kind of intuitive truth penetrates into the profound secrets of the universe, it is far deeper and greater than the logical truth obtained through ordinary thought and discrimination. Even if someday the time should come when scholars no longer pay any attention to the great philosophies of Kant and Hegel, will not the works of Goethe and Shakespeare continue to be transmitted for countless generations as mirrors of the human heart? If I may summarize what has been said above, the feeling of beauty is the feeling of muga. Beauty that evokes this feeling of muga is intuitive truth that transcends intellectual discrimination. This is why beauty is sublime. As regards this point, beauty can be explained as the discarding of the world of discrimination and the being one with the great way of muga. It therefore is really of the same kind as religion. They only differ in the sense of deep and shallow, great and small. The muga of beauty is the muga of the moment, whereas the muga of religion is eternal muga. Although morality also originally derives from the great way of muga, it still belongs to the world of discrimination, because the idea of duty, that is the essential condition of morality, is built on the distinction between self and other, good and evil. It does not yet reach the sublime realms of religion and art. However, when you devotedly practice morality over many years, you finally reach the level that Confucius described as to go bathing in the river Yi and enjoy the breeze on the rain altar, and then to go home chanting poetry. In other words, when morality advances and enters into religion, there is no difference between morality and religion.